Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 series, Can We Save the Oakland A's? And if you're looking closely, you'll notice that we've moved ahead a few weeks since our last episode. I had recorded an entire episode going through the playoffs little by little, talking about some of our prospects, talking about some prospects on other teams, and getting ready for this upcoming offseason. And unfortunately had another problem with the software similar to the one where he had a few weeks ago, where it ended up being a blank black screen and just me talking for about 35 minutes. So although I probably could get a lot of viewers, because I think a blank black screen of me droning on is probably a fantastic sleep aid, I decided, for those of you who are watchers and hopefully fans of this series, to make this a little bit higher production quality. So we're going to redo the episode, probably try to do it a little more quickly than the previous one. But as you can see here, the Diamondbacks are your 2028 World Series champions. They took out the Braves in the first round. Then they upset the NL West winning Dodgers 3 straight. Took out the Brewers, who had the best record in the National League, 4-2, and then took out the AL East winning Tampa Bay Rays in 6 games in the World Series. So the Diamondbacks in 2028 win their first World Series in 27 years. So since in our last episode we did the review of all of our major league pitchers and our major league position players before we had to move on to handle some real life things, we're going to focus on our farm system in this episode. And given that the new offseason has started, we've actually slipped back a bit, unfortunately. We were ranked 12th out of 30 overall when I was doing this during October. Now we rank 15th, unfortunately. And we've actually lost a top 100 prospect. Alejandro Landin was in the top 100 last time around. No longer is the case for him. When we look at our minor league affiliates, we've got some issues. Our DSL team is very good. We're excellent in AAA and AA, where we tend to bring on a little bit of talent with players who are willing to sign minor league contracts towards the end or at the end of spring training each year. So those teams are usually pretty solid. But unfortunately, our high A, and ACL rookie teams had bad to brutally bad seasons. And when we get in to look at some of our prospects and you see players who are having morale problems, it's almost entirely players on these 3 teams. And fortunately, I guess the only major concern that most of them have is just the horrible team record of the team that they're playing with. So we're going to have to really focus this coming off-season into when we set up our rosters on ensuring that there is enough talent on those teams to hopefully make them more competitive going forward, because we have been investing pretty heavily in player development throughout this playthrough and really need this team to start developing some players to have any chance of reaching our goals with these A's, and also keeping our job for the near term and the long term. Top 4 prospects in our system are all former IAFA players. They're all through the 4 IAFA periods we've had the player that we ended up spending the most money on, so that's probably a positive sign. Arturo Estrada, also known as hopefully the second coming of Deshaun Seifu, for those of you who watched our Buffalo Wings series in OOTP 24, viewed as the number 28 prospect in baseball, and for a guy who was basically 16 through the entire DSL season, he had a fantastic debut, hitting .330 as a 16-year-old with a 135 WRC plus. Doesn't look, when we look at his ratings relative to single A, like he is quite ready to excel there, but there's obviously about 6 months until we get to that point. So Could start the season in the DSL again and get one more year down there, but it's conceivable he could be starting in Class A ball as a 17-year-old next year as well. Stole 30 bases in addition to hitting .330. Love the personality. Think he still remains a big part of our future. Jaheim Pennyman, who we just picked second overall, has actually moved up. He was not listed when we did this to a blank screen as one of the top 200 prospects, and he's now number 60. His introduction to professional ball towards the end of the rookie league season was not great. 1-2 record in 7 games, 6 starts, with a 7.12 ERA over 24 innings. Did strike out 30 batters. Going to need to be working on his control and allowing home runs, but certainly think he's got a good personality to hopefully make things work out. He's on one of those bad teams from the Arizona Complex League, and you can see he's very unhappy with the team record. Everything else is fine at this point. So hopefully if we can have those lower-level minor league teams being a bit more successful, that will help our player development and help these guys reach their full potential. Bertrand Albrighton, IAFA signing from 2026, did make some strides this year in the DSL, raised his batting average almost 50 points, went from 1 home run to 8 home runs, increased his WRC plus by 20 points, was still a below average offensive player, and he is still striking out way too much, but he was 18 years old through this season. Has a lot of good personality traits, and if he reaches his full potential, we still think he's a very interesting player for us. So would have loved him to be developing a bit faster, but he still seems to be doing fine. Alejandro Landin, the 104th prospect in baseball, is an IAFA signing from 2027. Made his professional debut this year, hit over 300 with 12 homers. Like the glove, like the personality, like the potential bat. I think the switch-hitting infielder could be a important part of our future. And we'll skip over to the fourth of the IAFA guys that we picked in each of these 4 years before we talk about Roussel Shepard. Juan Rodas, who was the first IAFA player we picked in 2025, has improved 3 straight years in rookie ball. 20 years old now. He will likely be in A ball next year. Another guy who we like his personality, like the fielding, like the potential bat. And he made some progress this year, and hopefully that will continue in A ball next year. Roussel Shepard is one of the guys who was stuck on that very bad rookie league ACL team. Actually, he wasn't. He got promoted to the really bad single A team this year. There's some things we really like about Roussel Shepard. He's a very good defensive shortstop, and he's got great speed. He stole 40 bases in 44 attempts this year. The concern is that he now has 170 games that he's played in A ball, and he still has not hit 200 over the course of those 170 games. He's angry with his development, former 4th overall pick. Being on this poor team has definitely impacted his attitude and his development. That being said, even with a batting average below 100, he put up a 2.6 WAR thanks to his great speed and his very good defense. So I think if we can, like I said, ensure that these teams are a bit more competitive next year, hopefully Shepard's progress will continue. Few other key prospects. David Ramirez, shortstop that we took 14th overall. He was stuck on the awful rookie team. Hit just 220 with a 64 WRC plus. He's got a lot of work to do, but still a guy with high work ethic, solid fielder that we think can still develop into a useful hitter. Hopefully better things to come from Mr. Ramirez. Josh Mangano is a guy that we picked in the 2nd round this past year. He was 0-3 with a 4.91 ERA in 7 games, 4 starts over the final few weeks of the ACL season this year. Samuel Zavala, you may remember we got lucky with him, claimed him on waivers last November 5th. We're going to look at the waiver wire here again now that the offseason is getting underway. He was really good in AA and AAA, and he was actually fantastic in 77 Major League at-bats. Don't think he is a huge difference maker, but as a fourth or fifth outfielder next year, think he could be a pretty valuable guy for us. Left-handed bat, solid fielder, decent speed, and not going to be a game changer for us, but could be a useful cheap player for a few years. Similarly, Joendry Vargas is the other guy that we picked up on waivers a year ago. His future is definitely not as bright. He was really good in high A ball, but struggled in double A this year, and he's going to be turning 23 shortly. Question whether he's ever going to really be a major league hitter, but he does have a decent glove, can play some positions as we've been getting him more versatile there. I could see him being a utility infielder for us for 3 years down the line while he's making the major league minimum. After that, we probably move on from him. And then Kevin Stubblefield, the final guy that we mentioned, second round pick in 2027, did have 12 home runs in rookie ball this year, but batted just .211 with an 86 WRC plus. Was not horrible, but still has some potential. Check in on a couple other guys. Duncan Marston was our first round pick in this playthrough, fourth overall in 2024. He had a successful movement program last year in the development lab, and we're hoping it would help reduce the number of home runs he allows. I guess it did work because he did allow 41 in 2026, 32 in 2027, and he was down to allowing 24 this year, even though he's pitched more innings than in either of those previous seasons. So he did make a little bit of progress, and he was a combined 10 and 8 between high A ball and double A, but his ERAs were close to 6 at both levels. Positively, his Sierras were much better than his ERAs. His WARs were positive. I don't think he's ever going to be the ace that we hoped he could be when we picked him fourth overall. He's also gotten fragile, which I don't love to see. But he does throw in the mid to high 90s, has a potential good 4-pitch arsenal. All 4 of those pitches are already major league quality and potential to get better. I think his stuff could be above average, movement a bit above average, and we've got to keep working on his control. He could end up in the development lab again this offseason, and I could see him being a September call-up for us next year, possibly becoming the first player we've drafted to make an impact on the major league level. One other guy I wanted to check in on actually isn't even listed among the top prospects that we have anymore, so that probably is a preview for the information that I'm going to be sharing with you. And that player is Cruz Schoolcraft, who we picked 10th overall in 2025, potential two-way player. As a pitcher in A-ball this year, he put up a 3.33 ERA over 81 innings, promoted him to high A, where he went 0-2 with a 5.29 ERA. His Sierras were definitely better than the ERAs that he's been putting up. The issue with Schoolcraft is the lack of control, the number of walks he's still allowing at this point, and that his velocity doesn't seem like it's going to be exceptional as he's almost 22 years old and just throwing in the low to mid-90s. He's also, as I noted, a potential two-way player, and 3 seasons over 3 different levels, multiple stops at some of those levels, and he has never hit 200 at any of the levels that he's been at. He did combine for 16 homers this year between A and high A, put up a 97 WRC plus in A-ball before he was promoted, and then similar to pitching-wise, he struggled as a hitter in high A-ball this year. My concern with Schoolcraft is that I think the fact that he's being a two-way player is probably slowing his development. But the issue is I'm not really sure whether if I had to have him specialize, whether he would be a pitcher or a hitter. As a pitcher, as I noted, I'm very concerned about the lack of control. The walks could be a career limiting issue for him. But when I think about Schoolcraft as a hitter, although he has really good power, his eye is only average, and his gap power and, more importantly, his contact are both expected to be below average at best. He's also a guy who's going to strike out a lot. Now, granted, with a similar profile, we had a decent year this past year from our good young third, actually not that young, but our good third baseman from Japan, Hidero Endo. But Endo, despite all of my concerns about him, does have more power than Schoolcraft and does have a better eye than Schoolcraft. In theory, Schoolcraft could be a little better in contact and a little better at avoiding strikeouts, but this still is a profile that concerns me. If viewers have any thoughts on whether they'd keep using him as a two-way guy for another year in the minors, or perhaps make him specialize in either pitching or hitting, would love to hear them down in the comments. Right now, I think I'm inclined to use him as a two-way guy again, just because I think there are significant holes in both aspects of his game, and I'm just hoping that one, he closes some of those holes sooner than the other one. But certainly no guarantees that we're not going to look back in a couple of years as picking Schoolcraft 10th overall is a significant mistake and a wasted draft pick in the history of this Oakland A's franchise. So with that brief review of the top prospects in our farm system complete, we'll now take a look at some of the top prospects in all of baseball. Byron Dervish, international free agent signing from 2025 that we thought long and hard about bringing on board. We're very intrigued by his power and his incredible personality. Still stuck in rookie ball, but he's put up 138 and 114 WRC pluses each of the last couple of years. Would expect that the Stockport, England product would get promoted to A-ball this upcoming season. Joe Edwards is a guy who we had the opportunity to pick 4th overall in 2026. We passed on him, and he ended up going 5th overall. The main hang-up was the money he was looking for was going to make it very difficult for us to fill out the rest of the draft. But Edwards, as a guy who's listed as the number 2 prospect in all of baseball, has now made his major league debut. And given the struggles that we've had offensively, certainly would love to have a player like him around. He's also developed into a captain personality. Hit just 229 in the first 262 at-bats of his major league career this year. But he did have 15 doubles, 14 homers, and he also walked 34 times, so he was able to put up a 108 WRC plus. And according to our scout, there's still definitely ability for him to get somewhat better in all of the primary categories. So Edwards, a pretty useful major league player already. Jesus de la Campa, 2027 international free agent signing. Still looks like he's got excellent potential, but has not left the complex of the Royals yet. David Orta is a guy that we thought about picking in 2026, viewed as the number 35 prospect overall. He has not done much in parts of 3 seasons in rookie ball. Hit 240 this last year with a 66 WRC plus. Also looks like he's developed some negative personality traits, I think, while he's been in the Red system. I don't think we would have been as thrilled and almost going after him as we ended up if he had those negative personality traits back then. Can't remember for sure. Still looks, according to our scout, like he could be a very interesting major league player, potentially an excellent third baseman if his bat completely develops and he has that crazy home run power. Speaking of crazy home run power, Galterio Mancina, still Also looks like the number 2 prospect in baseball. So we've got 2 number 2 overall prospects. I'm not sure how that works. Spent time this year at a couple of levels in rookie ball as well as A ball. He was incredible in one of those levels of rookie ball, hitting 400 with 11 homers and 65 at bats. Video game statistics. But then his other 73 at bats across the other rookie league team and the A team, he had only 2 home runs. So still think he can, looking at his profile, be a very effective major league hitter, but he's got some work to do to get there. Last but not least, Daniel Campos. Thought about him in the international free agent signing period this year. Obviously, we went another direction, and given the way that our young outfielder hit, we're not disappointed that we went with Mr. Estrada rather than Mr. Campos. Campos hit 241, was basically a league average player. Still looks like the bat could be absolutely incredible, and he's also got good speed, but clearly a long way from the majors. And we'll see what he turns into in the coming years. Turning now to the pitchers, and we already checked in on Jaheim Penniman, who's the guy that we picked number 2 overall this past year. 3 of these guys were players that we had the opportunity to pick instead of Penniman, and in some cases upset viewers by not following their advice, so it'll be interesting to follow these guys over the course of their careers. Jeremy Martin, college player out of Indiana, viewed as the number 16 prospect in all of baseball. Actually only pitched 1 game in A-ball after he was finally signed, but only allowed 1 earned run over 5 1/3 innings, so smaller sample size than you'd ideally like, but still looks like he has the profile of a good major league pitcher in the not-so-distant future. Andres Medina, a guy we thought about as an international free agent signing this year, went in another direction, but he still looks like he could be a very good pitcher. Has not left the complex for the Dodgers yet, though. Chris Patterson is a guy that we thought very hard about picking at 2nd overall. He ended up going 3rd overall to the Rangers. Unfortunately, they failed to sign him, and that was kind of our issue with Patterson. We clearly would have made sure that we paid him enough money to sign him, but I believe he was looking for $13.5 million, so it basically would have been Chris Patterson and a bunch of mediocre guys in our class this year, even in those 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds, just because we would have spent about every penny we had to spend to get Patterson signed. Still has a profile of a devastatingly effective major league pitcher, and sounds like 3 years from now he'll be draft eligible again coming out of Washington, and maybe we'll get a crack at Cowboy Patterson then. Andres Rojas, this is a guy that we hoped would fall to us in the draft 1.5 years ago in 2027. You can see he went 47th overall. We had the 53rd pick. He is the knuckleballer, and he's viewed as the number 47 prospect in baseball. Split the year between A and high A ball, and not surprisingly, with that incredible knuckleball, he was extremely effective at both levels. A little surprised that he is not is an almost 22-year-old made it above high A ball, but the Marlins organization seems to be being conservative with him. Juan Sanabria, international free agent signing from the first class in 2025, listed as the number 19 prospect in baseball, but he tore his UCL in July. Was finally having the best year of his young career in rookie ball, but he's now 20 years old, fragile physically, coming off of a torn UCL. The profile doesn't necessarily suggest that he's going to be an ace starter. He still, if he reaches his full potential, could be a nice 2 or 3, but he's still got a lot of work to get to that point. Alan Walling, along with Patterson and Martin, is the 3rd pitcher that many of you thought we should potentially go with instead of Jaheim in the draft this year. He ended up going 8th. Our concerns with Walling were the lack of good competition he faced at Southern Indiana, and then more importantly, just that he did not throw very fast or very hard. But a lot of other things we certainly liked about him. He only got one game this year as well. Allowed just 3 hits while striking out 11 over 6 2/3 innings. One earned run allowed off of a home run. So a very nice debut in A ball for Alan Walling, but didn't get a lot of playing time as he apparently took a while to get signed. Last but not least, Matt Scott, another player who came out of Stanford that some of you wanted us to take as a college player a couple, or I guess 3 years ago in the draft at this point. Split the year between AAA and the majors, was up in the majors in September with a 4.5 ERA over 16 innings. Still really like the personality with him, throws in the mid-90s. Nice 3-pitch arsenal with a brilliant curve, excellent fastball, and a solid change. So his stuff is good, movement above average, fine control. Think he looks like he could be a very solid major league starter for the Braves for many years to come. And with that brief review of our farm system and some of the top prospects in baseball complete, we'll turn our attention back to our Major League Oakland A's team and some of the decisions that we're going to be looking at in the early stages of this offseason. I have an option year decision on Clark Schmidt at $7.5 million and Kettle Marte at $5 million. I think we're leaning towards not exercising either of those options. Christian Walker failed to meet his vesting option, and he will be a free agent as well. Not unexpectedly, Tim Herron, who suffered a career-ending injury during the season, has decided to retire. And we've also got a number of personnel leaving. We're kind of getting to the point where we're feeling like our job is in a tenuous position, and we decided to let our manager, Mark Kotze, bench coach Mike Freeman, and first base coach Eric Young all have their contracts expire and not bring them back. So Kotze is gone. We will be looking for a new manager this offseason, hopefully someone who can get more than 70 to 80 wins out of this Oakland team, which is where we've kind of been trapped over the 5 years of this playthrough. Clearly, it's my inability to develop players and to provide him with a really good team that is probably the proximate cause of the lack of success. But the nice thing about being the GM rather than the manager is you can throw the manager under the bus from time to time, and that is what we have done with Mark Kotze this offseason. We did not do well with our season goals this year. We were supposed to not suck, so 73 and 89 was fine for that perspective, but Mr. Fisher's still looking for more than us. Wants us to add a top player, and we didn't do that. Made some progress on increasing attendance, but not quite enough. And fan interest and international amateur fines have failed miserably on both of those. So he's unhappy with our performance in accomplishing the goals that he's given us, but he does still think our performance is good for some reason when he considers the on and off field success of the team. Maybe the fact that we have perennially had the lowest budget in all of baseball makes the fact that we have never been the worst team in baseball mean that we're a little bit of overperformers. We do have some ambitious goals going forward. He wants us to play 500 ball this year, so we're going to need to turn over every little thing we can try to find some players to help us this offseason, whether it's the Rule 5, whether it's the trade market, whether it's international free agency, whether it's regular free agency, whether it's the waiver wire. We've got to make some progress. Also wants us to continue improving attendance, acquire an all-star, increase fan interest, and get into the playoffs the next 3 seasons. So we've got a lot of work to do with this team, and this is going to be a pivotal offseason for us. The new budget is the old budget, $126 million. We have been at this point at that 126 million level for 4 consecutive seasons. So I guess it's good that it didn't get cut back, but definitely not great that we haven't done anything in terms of driving more revenues, increasing fan interest, improving fan loyalty, being able to raise ticket prices that will ultimately result or contribute to us getting a bigger budget. And we haven't been successful on any of those fronts so far. So at least the budget didn't go down. We're not going to be in a worse spot than we were last season, although I guess with inflation on at a low level in this game that we're playing this year, our buying power has been steadily eroding over these now 4 seasons that we've been stuck at a $126 million budget. And in addition to the decisions we have to make on the team options, we've got a number of arbitration eligible players this year. Some will be back, some will not. Also have several pending major league free agents and a large list of minor league free agents as well. So it's going to be a busy start to this offseason. And given that it is such a pivotal offseason for the Oakland A's, we're probably going to have moved ahead a few days by the time we get to our next episode. I am going to spend a lot of time offline turning over every leaf that I possibly can to find some players to help this team. I've been doing that through the first 5 years of this playthrough and haven't necessarily found any great options, so it's not necessarily going to magically happen this offseason. But I'm also going to spend a fair amount of time using every opportunity we have over the next several days of game time to shop any players who are not really part of our medium to long-term future with this team, just to get a sense of the value out there and what our options are, because we've got to put ourselves in a position where offensively in particular we're not coming back with a team that has a pretty high correlation to this team. We need to make some changes this offseason and improve things, and as I said, I'm probably going to spend the next couple days of game time, or maybe even the next several days of game time, just digging in for hours, given the boringness of my life, to try to figure out if there's some trades out there where we can open up some additional money, find a player or two to build around. I'm not necessarily expecting that we're going to come back and there's going to be some brilliant deal that we've completed that's going to completely change the trajectory of this franchise. But if we do 3 or 4 little deals, getting players off our books, and maybe find 1 or 2 guys who have potential to help us in the future, and another player or two who might be able to help us next year, maybe we'll be in a better position with this team in mid-December or mid-November than we are right now on November 5th. So that's kind of the near-term plan for me in this playthrough, and we'll find out how the very early stages of this offseason went in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.